You're listening to the Armchair Cricket Podcast.
Hello all, welcome to another episode of Armchair Cricket Podcast. As the euphoria of the World Cup dies down, we are done with our World Cup digests and we'll be returning to the regular format where you can expect one or two episodes from us every week. I'm Ajit and I'll be your host today. My co-host Giri is still away on a holiday. In today's episode, we have a special guest, Adam from the CricketeersNZ podcast, joining us and helping us go through how the New Zealand public are dealing with the loss of the World Cup final and so on. So without further ado, let's listen to what Adam has to say. Hello Adam.
Hello Ajit, how's it going?
Hi, it's going good.
So,
As good as can be after that venture of a final. How are you guys doing back home in the New Zealand?
Yeah, it was a week ago now, or just on a week ago. It's an incredible match when you think about it. It's so close and so much emotion involved in that match, and you think about the scenes from the English players at the end and the distraught from the Black Caps players and the whole talk about the match as well. It seems like it's still going on, and it's a match that's going to be talked about for years to come, and everybody's going to have an opinion on about how it should have finished and the little turning points in the match.
Indeed. Is this the greatest ODI ever, do you think, so far in the history of ODIs, or do you have another one that you think is better than this?
That's a massive question. I mean, I went and saw New Zealand versus Australia at Seddon Park in 2007, and New Zealand on that occasion we chased down, I think, 340 odd to win. And I remember Matthew Hayden getting 181 and smashing some massive sixes, and then we were in trouble being 40 for 4, and Craig McMillan got 100, and McCullum got 80 odd, and it was an amazing atmosphere, and I was there. So I just remember just the feeling when we won, especially because we beat Australia and the way we played in that series as well. It was just an incredible event. And other matches that I've seen, the 1999 Cricket World Cup semi-final between Australia and South Africa was an amazing match. I just remember that finish, incredible scenes. Alan Donald and Lance Klusener involved in that run out and just the emotions again with that game. Outside that, obviously the 4-3-4 game when South Africa chased down Australia's title in Johannesburg, and just Tony Greig's commentary and the fact that no team had chased down 400 before, let alone 443. It was an incredible match. So those ones are the ones that stand out to me. When I was young, I remember Chris Pringle bowling a maiden over to Bruce Reid, the last over of a match against Australia. Again, that was an incredible match. But you've got to put it in context. This was a World Cup final. This is not just any old one-day international. So based on that, based on the finish, based on the fact it went to a super over, I could say there's a strong argument for it being the greatest one-day international ever played.
I would say yes. So for me, it's more like because of the context of the final, also first ever ODI to have a super over, right, result, and in such a momentous occasion. Also, look, the two teams were so close; they were tied twice, and finally some archaic rule about a boundary count had to be invoked to get a result. So a game can't get closer than that, is my opinion. Therefore, I would think this is the greatest ODI I have ever witnessed. The other tie, the 1999 semi-final of the World Cup, Australia and South Africa, would come next for me, right? But then the 438 would come third for me, because it was a great match, but without a doubt also probably we'll never see the likes of it again, right? But at the end of the day, it was just a bilateral series, and it was, I think, a decider of a bilateral series even, but that still doesn't mean the same thing for me as a end of a World Cup, what that happens once every 4 years. So for me, this was the greatest ODI. Now, if you were to look at, how are people dealing with it? Are the fans still gutted? If you go to the supermarket, do you still have people, grumbling about it, or have they moved on?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think everybody handles things in different ways. Look, I'm the admin of the New Zealand Cricket Fans Forum, and we have 4,500 members. And there's still a little bit of a backlash towards the decision by, I guess, the ICC to adjudicate a tiebreaker with a boundaries scored system. You know, to be honest, I feel that we got so close yet, you know, to not lose a match, but to tie a match yet still not win the World Cup. It's deflating, isn't it? I mean, you're not going to get closer than that, are you? So there's a lot of people that aren't taking it very well, to be honest. I mean, I think a lot of people would have rather another system. Obviously, there was that Ben Stokes overthrow that went for 4 that ultimately gave them 6 runs, and now it's come out that it should have been 5 runs, not 6 runs, and that Rashid should have been on strike, and all those little things. You think about the LBW decisions as well. Jason Roy, could have easily been given out off the first ball of England's innings, and you think about, Ross Taylor as well being adjudged LBW when it was going over the stumps. So there's all those little things that I guess people are going to look back on and think, well, what happens if those things would have gone New Zealand's favour? Would the match have turned out differently? And I think in particular, I think the fact that we tied the game yet we still lost. And in effect, we didn't lose the game, but we didn't win the World Cup, and England ended up being winners, thus winning the World Cup. I think there's that fact that doesn't sit quite well with a lot of New Zealand fans, to be honest.
Yeah, indeed, I can imagine that. It was not a match lost. It was just a tie, which was decided on a technicality. It doesn't feel like a real loss, but I mean, if you're the winning team, you would take it. Considering that, the rules of engagement were sort of agreed on beforehand. Everybody knew this is what was going to happen. Unfortunately, for me, it was a real shame, because the way Jimmy Neesham played in that super over batting effort, come on, man. I mean, once somebody concedes 15 runs in a super over, it's more or less done. But Jimmy Neesham never gave up. In 5 balls, they've scored 14 runs in 2 of the last ball. And, well, I mean, also a bit of kudos to Archer, right? He held his nerve in spite of conceding a 6 and everything in the earlier part of the over. He held his nerve. The last 2 balls were really good, because 3 of 2, if he had held there, maybe Neesham could have hit him for a boundary and the match would have been finished, right? So I would like to give him a bit of credit there. What do you think about the way Archer bowled?
Oh, Jimmy Neesham had a fantastic tournament, didn't he? But yeah, I mean, Jofra Archer, I mean, what a talent this guy is. And we need to remember this guy's been involved in these type of matches in the IPL before, so he's got a lot of experience. But at international level and in a World Cup final, it's something else. His first delivery was a wide, and it was a close wide, wasn't it? Very close to the line, and he didn't exactly look too happy about it. And then you think about that delivery that went for 6, and it really put the match actually back in New Zealand's favour. I thought when we hit that 6, and Neesham hit it over the wicket for 6, I thought, well, yeah, this is our game, it's in our favour now. But he bowled beautifully in his remaining deliveries. The guy's just got so much composure and confidence in his own abilities. He's definitely going to be a great player one day.
Well, I mean, we hear that he's suffering from a little bit of a side strain, so he's recuperating. Otherwise, you could very well expect that he would be a part of the England squad that is going to start facing the Irish team in a test next week, right?
Absolutely. I think that Jofra Archer is going to be up there as one of the greats, actually. He's that talented. He's a bit like Michael Holding. He's just got a smooth run up, and he bowls with extreme pace. I think him and Rabada will be the 2 young pacemen to watch out in the future.
Indeed. Going back, do you have a specific moment that you would pick as the key or the pivotal moment of the final for you, Adam?
It's quite hard to nail down one. I mean, look, you could say Ross Taylor being out LBW was a bit of a turning point. I mean, obviously, Martin Guptill ended up using a review early on, and as a result, Ross Taylor didn't have a chance to review his decision, and if he would have reviewed it would have been overturned, because the ball was going over the stumps. You think about some other little moments, when New Zealand were batting at the end, Jofra Archer bowled a great spell, and Colin de Gromholden really struggled to get bat on ball, and usually he's a fine striker of a ball and scores at a good clip, but this time around he couldn't get on with it, and eventually hold out in the deep. In terms of the England's innings, I mean, look, Jason Roy that was a real close LBW decision. On any other day that could have been out. And you think about when New Zealand played India, and Virat Kohli was given out LBW to an which ended up being an umpire's call. And if Virat Kohli on that occasion was given not out, and New Zealand would have reviewed it, wouldn't have been out. So those close calls happen in cricket. I think for me, Josh Buttler's innings was a massive turning point. He came in and he just played extremely well. Like the energy that he brought was phenomenal. Ben Stokes played a fantastic innings, and we know that he ended up winning the match ultimately for England. But for me, it was Josh Buttler coming in and just providing the impetus that England needed, because they were getting behind in the run rate at one point. But he came in, hit the ball beautifully, rotated the strike well. Him and Ben Stokes together just add so much energy, and their ability to keep the run rate ticking over was superb. And I thought those two guys in particular, in a real tough situation with England being 4 down and plenty still to get, showed so much composure.
I mean, I definitely agree. Josh Buttler probably played a very important part, but Ben Stokes was there till the end. And a 4 down, I thought, New Zealand will take this away. They're going to constrict England and not give away enough runs, which more or less happened. But the way they both counterattacked, the way they counterattacked through singles and doubles, there were not a lot of boundaries hit, which is sort of what you would expect once Josh Buttler gets going. But I think they came back in a very nice manner. So that credit has to be given. But for me, the pivotal point of the entire game was when there were 22 required of 9 balls, and Ben Stokes hit a ball to Trent Boult in the deep, who took a catch and took a step back involuntarily and stepped on the ropes. I mean, if he had completed the catch, Marty Guptill was literally just a couple of yards away, and he threw the ball just 1 or 2 seconds late. If he had thrown the ball before he stepped on the ropes, and if Ben Stokes had been out that ball, it would have been 8 balls, 22 runs required, and I expect that would have been game over. So
yeah, I absolutely agree. And you think about Trent Boult, he's taken so many incredible catches in his career for the Black Caps, in the outfield, spectacular ones that have been featured on ESPN. I mean, this guy's an extremely good fielder, and he tends to pull off the unexpected catch. But unfortunately, for whatever reason, I don't know if it was the pressure or not knowing where the boundary was, but he fell on the boundary as he was trying to flick the ball back in, and it was ordered 6 runs. And you're right, it was a massive point of the match.
That's it for me. Also, I don't think he did a very good job bowling the last over or the super over, to be frank with you. I mean, there are also some talk in certain circles. Was he the right person to bowl the last over? Maybe Matt Henry could have had 1 over retained so that he could have bowled the last over. So there are all these ifs and buts. There are no end to this. But for me, that could have been a turning point. So if Trent Boult, who also took such a very, very important catch when he, stopped that shot from Carlos Brathwaite from crossing the ropes. If you remember, that was also a match-winning shot, if anything. And he held on to it. That was probably a tougher catch than this. I mean, when you look on TV at least. And he took that comfortably. And this one, I'm like, oh God, man, you could have wrapped it up here. But he still had another chance because he was going to get the ball for the last over.
Yeah, I guess you've got to also consider the angles at Lords are a little bit different as well. Mm-hmm. There's slightly shorter boundaries as well. He was a little bit closer to the boundary when he attempted this catch off Ben Stokes. In terms of his death bowling, I mean, look, it's quite hard to criticise someone's bowling, and sometimes you've got to give credit to the batsman. That shot that Ben Stokes hit for 6 was absolutely outrageous. I mean, he was completely spent, and you could see he had no energy left, and how he would hit that delivery for 6, kind of falling over, was absolutely, out of this world. And you got to remember as well, that delivery that Stokes he hit down the ground for 2 runs. It was a full delivery, and then Guptill obviously threw the ball in, hit Stokes and went for 6 off the overthrow. Right. That was still a good delivery. I mean, I don't know if it was an extremely poor over from Boult as much as it was some extremely good batting by Ben Stokes.
Indeed. Also, it wouldn't be complete if we didn't discuss the skipper of the New Zealand side, Kane Williamson. I mean, is there a more magnanimous person in the world of sport currently? I don't know, man. Adam, what do you think?
Look, he's a guy that's a bit of a different character than what our previous skipper Brendan McCullum was or is. He's just a calmer figure. He's composed. He's not the extrovert type that Brendan McCullum possessed, or the guy that wears his heart on the sleeve in the same kind of manner. But this guy is a guy that can get his troops to follow his lead, and he leads by example, and he's got a really great demeanour, and he instills a lot of self-belief in his side, and his tactics are a little bit different than Brendan McCullum's as well. He does things a little bit more subtle, with little field changes and obviously changes in terms of bowling changes, etc. So this is a guy that for me now was developed into the role as captain, not only with his tactics but just in his ability to lead a side. And as I said, he just does it in a little bit of a different way than what Brendan McCullum did.
For sure. I mean, that press conference after the World Cup final, it'll stay with me forever. Also, that video of where I think it's become viral now, where one of the reporters asks him, "You are now the man of the series," and he's like, "Me?" So he himself can't believe it. That he probably thinks there are other people who would probably go ahead of him on that. But all that is so unassuming and so so nice to see. Most teams, if it were to be England on the losing side or even India, you would see a bit of outrage there in the press conference, maybe a bit of hurt at least.
Yeah, I mean, look, from the press conference, obviously, I mean, I guess what could he say? There's been a few reports back home in New Zealand about questioning the rules and questioning deciding World Cup final based on boundaries. And Gary Stead's come out and said that it should have been a shared trophy. I guess that's another argument. Could we've had a shared trophy instead of having one team awarded the World Cup based on boundaries?
I mean, I think that would be the right approach if, let's say, going forward. So there is this very nice article on Cricket Info I read where they suggested a couple of other alternatives. For example, head-to-head in the league stages could have been one measure. There were three measures they were recommending. None of these were something as trivial as a boundary count in the final, right? So if you don't want to adapt any of those, I would say yes, a shared trophy would be the right way forward. Come on, it's a 48 match tournament. You've come to the final and you've tied twice, right? Then I think a shared trophy still makes sense to me.
See, I disagree with that completely. I don't like shared trophies at all. I think you play that much and for 6 weeks to find out who the best team in the World Cup is. Now, in terms of options, like I think another super over would have been great to see. I wasn't 100% comfortable with us losing based on boundaries. I get that's the rule, so I've got no problem with England winning based on that. But I think an extra super over would have been good. Just also, you can't also deny that England had a better net run rate during the tournament than New Zealand, and also won the head-to-head match against us. So that's why I've got really no problem with England winning the World Cup or being adjudged winners of the World Cup. Right. The boundary rule, I mean, for me, I'd rather a team win outright based on some type of criteria, and I think there would have been no qualms if England would have been adjudged the World Cup winners or the tournament winners based on either head-to-head or net run rate. And we've also got to remember that New Zealand made the semi-finals based on net run rate. So New Zealand got their place in the semi-finals based on net run rate instead of head-to-head over Pakistan. So are we judging the World Cup winners based on one game or based on tournament criteria? I guess that's another question we need to ask. I mean, if it's based on the one-off game, then I reckon an extra super over would have been good to see. Or if it's going to be based on the tournament, then England in that regard would have been ahead on net run rate and also head-to-head as well.
I mean, look, I'm not going to debate too much if England is the deserved winners. They did really well. It's just that the Kiwis on the day did not deserve to lose. That's all, right? Based on their performances on the field that day. Well, I mean, we could go on a bit more, but I definitely agree that another super over could have made it really easy. Could have probably decided the winner, right? I mean, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, that's how it is done in football. If you don't finish in penalties, you go into a sudden death. I can respect that.
And I think that's the disappointing thing. Like, this was one of the greatest one-day international of all time, arguably. We both think it is, and so many other people out there think it is as well. But there's also going to be a lot of what-ifs about the game. and I think that's a real shame. You know, if England would have won the game by a run, for example, in the Super Over, I don't know if we would have had this much debate as what we are having now. I mean, obviously there was the Ben Stokes moment. A lot of fans back in New Zealand are upset about that particular rule. I don't think Kiwis are taking this as well as what some people think they are. Yes, some of the players probably publicly are. But, as I said, I'm the admin of a Facebook page that has 4,500 Kiwi fans. And there's some upset people. And in terms of the overthrow, I don't think that necessarily cost us the game because, for example, just say hypothetically, if that didn't go for 4 and they'd only run 2 runs, they would have needed 7 runs off 3 balls with Ben Stokes on strike. Now, we don't know what would have happened from there. Would Ben Stokes have gone for the big shot? Could he have hit a 6? We don't know. Alternatively, if it was 5 and Rashid ended up being on strike, basic to the letter of the law, suddenly, they need, 4 off, was it 4 off 3? 4, would have been 4 off 2, wouldn't it? So,
yeah, 4 off 2.
4 off 2. So, Rashid could have, hit it for a streaky 4. Rashid could have got a single and got Ben Stokes on at the last ball, and England might have needed 3 off 1, and Stokes could have hit a boundary off the last ball, and England could have won. We don't know how it would have panned out. So that's why I don't necessarily think that incident necessarily cost New Zealand the game. I think, yes, we would have been in a better position, but we just don't know. And I think for me, that's the disappointing. There's so many what ifs about this game. And it as I mentioned, I mean, this is the greatest one-day international that I've seen, an incredible match. And it's a shame that there's always going to be these talking points basically forever.
Indeed. But yeah, I mean, I think as fans, we would probably be left a bit unsatisfied no matter which way the match would finish. But it's so, palpitatingly obvious that it could have been done in a different way. Anyway, going on, there's no end to the magnanimity of this New Zealand people, I'm wondering now, because I hear Ben Stokes has been nominated as the New Zealander of the Year. Did you know this?
I did, yeah. I posted something on my website the other day on my Facebook page, and it's crazy to think that he's been nominated for New Zealander of the Year. Look, I only know that the criteria is basically anybody that's New Zealand origin, but it still seems pretty strange that a guy who's representing England's been nominated for New Zealand of the Year, especially when his innings essentially won the game for England over us in the World Cup final. It's a bit of a ridiculous decision, I think. Not playing down Ben Stokes' incredible feats. And I'm sure that he still, like a lot of people who immigrate to different countries, still looks back at his origins and is still proud of where he comes from. But he's now representing England.
Indeed, I agree on that. Well, I mean, at least Kane Williamson is also nominated, and I hope Kane Williamson wins. At least, if not Ben Stokes, right? So, Kane Williamson, I think, has been exemplary, and he's been a wonderful ambassador for New Zealand throughout this tournament, and a deserved man of the series at the end of the series, I would say. And therefore, well, I mean, he deserves to be, if anybody, the Kiwi of the Year. Yeah, let's see if I hope he wins. All right, let's go a bit further now. Adam, are you watching the first test, the women's Ashes, that's currently in progress?
I haven't watched any of it all. I know that Lise Perry got another 100. That's an incredible feat by her. I mean, she got that double 100 against England last year. She's an incredible athlete too. You got to remember this is a lady that was involved in the Australian women's football team, and she was involved with a goal that ended up getting the Australian women's football team into the World Cup when she scored that goal against, was it Iran, I think it was Iran, in the World Cup qualifying. Qualifies. So, she's a pretty incredible athlete, isn't she?
Pretty much. I mean, she also took a 7-for in the ODI series preceding this test. And, well, going into this test, the England women's team were trailing 6-0 because in the Ashes, women's Ashes, they count all the points of all the 3 formats combined to determine the winner, right? So, absolutely. In this case, the England women were 0-6 down, and starting this test, Australia won the toss and having elected to bat, they are now 341 for 5 with about half a day's play lost yesterday to rain. Perry made 116, Meg Lanning, the skipper, made 57, Alyssa Healy 58, and Rachel Haynes made 87 and missed out on 100. But their innings is not done. I mean, looking at amount of time left, 2 days in the test, it looks really, really very tough for England to win this game. And more or less, I think the Ashes is won by the Australian women's team. What do you think of that?
I don't follow their cricket enough, to be honest. I mean, I think it's a great initiative to get women's Test cricket back up and running again for me. I think women should play more cricket, and it's great that it's called the Ashes as well. I think it's brilliant stuff. It adds a bit more importance to the series. And as we just mentioned, Elise Perry, they've got some other brilliant players in their side. Mitchell Stark's wife, Elise Healy. So I mean, they've got so much talent over there, and it's great to see women being able to play the longer form of the game.
Yeah, so a couple of questions that I see. One is it a good idea if in the future, now there is a World Test Championships taking place, but maybe in the future these bilateral series could be decided like that, do you think, where you count the points on all the 3 formats and then decide a winner rather than allowing that there is a Test series winner, there is an ODI series winner, etc., etc. What do you think?
So you're talking about you get a point for winning the one-day series, a point for winning the Test series, and a point winning the T20 series?
No. It's more like I think you get 2 points for winning a ODI, you get 4 or 5 points for winning a Test, and you get 1 point for winning a T20. So if you have like a series of 3 ODIs, 3 T20s, and 1 Test, for example, I think you have 6, 3, 9, 4, 13 points on offer. So whichever team tallies the highest number of points is the winner of the overall series, something like that.
I personally wouldn't agree with that. I think the formats are all different in their own right. So I'd rather just keep it the way it is, to be honest. I mean, and I like the fact that there's a Test Championship now, which does give more weight to Test series, in particular Test matches. So in terms of accumulating points on that basis for a Test Championship, yes, I agree. But not overall, not all formats being aggregated to some kind of point system. That's one thing I don't agree with.
All right, it's just an interesting thought that the ladies cricket team have already come up with this, or the ladies cricket have already come up with this sort of a way of doing it. Maybe in the future, we'll see if it can also be adapted in the men's game. So that's just a thought. The other one, as a precursor to the Ashes, the men's Ashes. So which way do you see this going? Just it's a prelim discussion. It's not. We don't need to go into it too deep. But do you see English cricket team retaining the Ashes, or would you expect Australia to storm back now that they have Smith, Warner back in the team and the fast bowlers firing?
Wow, I mean it's going to be a brilliant series, and it's kind of funny to think it's only a couple of weeks away, isn't it? We've had 6 weeks of one-day cricket. They have a bit of a short break, and then they're back into playing Test matches again. This is going to be a really interesting series. I mean, you think about this Australian side hasn't beaten England in England in the last 4 series they've played, and they've brought over some very good sides. And we're going to remember the series in 2015 when England won that series, and some incredible performances over there. Stuart Broad's bowling performance in one of those Test matches out of this world. Steve Smith made a double century. It was an incredible series, as they always are. This one will be again fascinating. Australia will have a good bowling lineup in their disposal. When you get Josh Hazlewood will be back in the mix. Mitchell Stark found some form in the Test matches against Sri Lanka earlier in the year, and also had a great World Cup. We added Nathan Lyon, who's one of the best Test spinners in the world at the moment. Pat Cummins has come on leaps and bounds. You add in Smith and Warner to the mix, and we know that Steve Smith is the best Test batsman in the world. Statistically, he's averaging over 60 in Test cricket. David Warner, he can be found out away from home, but he's still a classy batsman. So you add that mix and some of the other players in and around that side. I'm not sure whether Khawaja will be back for Australia, but I mean they've still got a very strong side. Looking at the England side, Jofra Archer, you'd think that he'll come into the mix. He's got a very good first-class record, and we've just talked about the talent that this guy possesses. Stuart Broad back in the mix. Okay, he didn't have a great series against the West Indies earlier in the year. Jimmy Anderson has been injured lately. So it'll be a fascinating series. I think England are still trying to figure out their Test team. But they were shocked by the West Indies earlier on in the year. I think at the moment they're just still trying to get that balance quite right. You think of Josh Butler's been playing in there. You've got Folks who's a keeper as well, and Bairstow. And for me, they just seem like they've had a few too many bits and pieces players on their Test side, especially against the West Indies. They haven't really been able to settle on the side. James Vince has been in and out. They've had some issues with openers since Alistair Cook retired. So, yeah, I mean, I would say that Australia would go into that heavy favourites for me. However, it wouldn't surprise me if England would tip Australia up. It's going to be a great series, even as a neutral. It's actually on pretty good times in New Zealand. Starts around 9:30 our time. So hopefully I'll be able to get through and watch most of the first sessions of play, which would be great.
All right. Yeah, even I can't wait for these Ashes to start. Also the England-Ireland test, which starts next Wednesday. I'm waiting desperately for Test match cricket to start, and I'm as we claim to be purists, and we claim to be like fans of the longer format of the game. It's something I'm really waiting for. And as you say, it will be a very interesting Ashes. I think Australia, I wouldn't put them too far ahead of England, but they are slightly ahead of England. I would say Australia are the favourites going into it, but I think this England cricket team may yet shock them. I think given the high they are on, at least the first 2 to 3 tests, they would be very strong going into it. And let's see if Australia can withstand that and maybe take the Ashes home. They haven't won the Ashes on the English soil in a decade, if I'm not wrong. So it's anyway a big challenge for them. Under Justin Langer, I think they have a new sort of a mental makeup. So maybe, let's see if they're able to take it home this time. Going forward, if you look at some of the other, stories from around the cricketing world, there are some couple of unfortunate ones. First of all, Zimbabwe has been suspended by ICC due to government interference. It looks like there's too much government interference going on, and as a result, ICC has decided to suspend Zimbabwe from all international cricket. Do you think this is a good thing for Zimbabwe, Adam?
It's hard for me to really discuss the political side of it, but yeah, I mean, for Zimbabwe, it's a massive shame. We think about some of the very good Zimbabwe sides over the years. You think about looking at the 1999 side. There's some tremendous players, Neil Johnson and Murray Goodwin, and Heath Streaks and the Flowers and all those kind of guys, and even the sides in the 80s. Someone like David Helton was such a integral part of the Zimbabwe setup, and you think about also Sam Curran and Tom Curran's father. That was Kevin Curran. That was part of the Zimbabwe setup in the 80s. So this is a massive blow to Zimbabwe cricket, and it's really sad to see. You wonder where Zimbabwe cricket's going to go from here, whether they'll ever get an opportunity to ever compete again. And for me, they're kind of going down the same road as where the Kenyan side went down. Like Kenya at one point were so close to getting Test status, and now look at them. The miles behind the pack, and they've got a lot of work to do over there. This will set Zimbabwe up a lot. I thought them not making the World Cup was a massive blow to their cricket. This is massive ramifications for them, and it looks like they'll lose a lot of guys to county cricket, or a lot of the players may stop playing cricket altogether. It's an absolute shame what's happened over there, a massive shame. And you think about the early 90s when they lost a lot of players. That moved out of Zimbabwe. Henry Longa was one. After the 2003 World Cup, it's just a shame to see. I don't know what the fix will be over there. Obviously, it runs pretty deep, but this is going to affect a whole lot of their players. And it's sad to see a demise of a country that at one point was really starting to develop in international cricket, but due to politics and things outside of cricket, they haven't been able to quite reach their full potential.
Indeed. I completely agree with everything you say here. I really hope they sort the problems that are currently ongoing, and they are able to find a way forward, right? The other thing, well, speaking of government interference, I was reading that the Sri Lankan sports minister has asked SLC, Sri Lankan cricket body, to oversee or overhaul the national coaching setup. Good idea again, because we see certain countries have a bit more political involvement in sport, or their political bodies have a bit more of a say in sport, right? So how does New Zealand stay out of it? New Zealand's cricketing structure, I understand, is a little bit smaller compared to some others out there. I hear there are as many as 400 to 500 professional cricketers is all in the entire country. With that, how does New Zealand keep its sport, let's say the sport governance, free of government interference? How do they do that?
I think we've just got really professional sports bodies that run our games in this country. I think that and they've been able to find ways of being able to create revenue. I think that's the one thing. Probably with New Zealand governments don't tend to step in to our sports, maybe like those other countries. That's probably it as well. I mean, look, the Zimbabwe situation is a little bit different, isn't it? I mean, there's a whole lot going on over there. That's not even sport related as well. Lots of issues, political issues. We know the dictatorship that's going on over there, all those type of things. So, their situation is different. I think New Zealand's been able to find a way of being able to keep sport and politics relatively separate. And I think that's been very good for us in all sporting codes. And I think having that divide definitely helps.
Indeed. The other not so nice news that we have read in the last week is that Ian Chappell, the Australian former captain, has revealed that he is currently battling skin cancer, though not a very aggressive kind, but it's still a very upsetting sort of a news if you're a fan of cricket. He's such an incisive analyst of the game, and sorry to hear that he's undergoing this problem. We really hope he comes out of it on the other side very happy and healthy, Adam.
Yeah, absolutely. He's such a good commentator as well. He's always a bit of a voice of reason. I mean, he comes across sometimes a little bit grumpy sometimes in the box, but he keeps it real, and I've always enjoyed his commentating. It's a shame that Channel 9, when Channel 9 lost the rights, that his commentary he's been missed basically. So I hopefully he gets better.
Indeed. All right. So going further, there are a couple of other small news. So Tendulkar, Alan Donald and Catherine Fitzpatrick have all been inducted into the ICC Hall of Fame. 3 very deserving players, do you think, Adam?
The little master. How good's he? One of the great players of his generation, wasn't he? Arguably the best batsman of his generation, along with Brian Lara. And his one-day international record is phenomenal. I always remember that series when he was promoted up the order to open the batting for India against New Zealand earlier in the 90s, and then from there he just made the opening position his own and just scored a truckload of hundreds and both one-day internationals and Test cricket. He's been a phenomenon. Still one of the most popular people in India as a legend of the game. Great guy on and off the field. Some of his battles with Shane Warne and the Australians was legendary. He's just I can't really say much more about him. Alan Donald's an interesting one as well. Somewhat of an underrated player when you think about it. For me, what a performer. You think when he came back or came into the South African side in 1992, he really first made his mark with the zinc all over his face when South Africa were remitted into international cricket. It was white lightning, 145 k's an hour, just a champion player, such a great athlete as well. Carried the South African attack for years, along with Sean Pollock when he joined him, and just phenomenal cricketer, and great to see that his performances have been rewarded, and he's in the Hall of Fame.
The third person is Catherine Fitzpatrick, former fast bowler, who's won the World Cup both as a player and as a coach. So I think she was also very rightly inducted into the ICC Hall of Fame. Going further, it has come out that Inzamam ul Haq, who was the Pakistan cricket's chief selector, has decided to not renew his contract, which has come to an end at the end of the World Cup. And he says he's done with it. Do you think his time has come, or what do you think about his far-sightedness? Do you think he set up Pakistan cricket well for the upcoming years?
I think Pakistan now have a good group of young guys coming through. You think of Babar Azam and you think of Shakib Khan and Shaheen Afridi. They've got some good kids coming through, and they could be a real force come the 2023 World Cup. Look, I know that he was under a bit of heat, for a selection of Aman al Haq in the side. There was a lot all over internet about that, and certain favouritism towards his nephew. But Aman played exceptionally well, didn't he? And what a one-day career he's establishing, and he's only a young man. So maybe he just got to a point where he just wanted to move on. I'd imagine being a selector or being and the coaching staff of Pakistan would be filled with pressure. They do love their cricket. They do have lots of expectations on their side. It'll be interesting to see who comes in. I'm not sure whether Mickey Arthur's going to be coaching them anymore. Maybe that's a reason why Al Haq decided to step down.
I think given the way Pakistan performed and the amount of criticism they received from their fans, I think there might be a overhaul also from the coaching staff in the Pakistan men's cricket. So it remains to be seen whom they appoint, if they decide to go in for a change or whatnot. So that news is still yet to come. So I guess we are still awaiting that, right? So going further, it looks like BCCI is also inviting fresh applications for the coaching role of the national men's cricket coach. But the incumbents automatically are also put into the pool of options. So Ravi Shastri, the fast bowling coach Arun, then the batting coach Sanjay Bangar, all of these people are also going to be, the incumbents are also going to be on the list of probables. But BCCI has actually invited more applications from out there. So do you see any potential replacements for Shastri? Do you see any other high-profile coaches who are currently free who might, throw their hat in?
Just on coaching, how much does a coach affect a team when you really think about it? I mean, you look at that Indian side that lost to New Zealand. I mean, that was as good an Indian side as you're going to get. Maybe give or take a few players. I'm not really sure whether coaching was the issue with them as much as just getting the right mix for their team.
Indeed.
And it really comes down to as well selection and preferred players, and I think Virat Kohli has a massive say in that, doesn't he? I mean, and you think about the scenes when Virat Kohli and Ravi Shastri were having discussions on the balcony during the New Zealand versus India match. I mean, obviously they were disagreeing about something. Whatever it was, who knows? Maybe it was the fact that Dhoni came in at number 7. But I think for India, it's not necessarily getting the right coach. It's just getting that right mix of players, because with looking at the players in their side, they've got enough talent. And on any given day, they might have beaten New Zealand and they might have won the World Cup. They've got a very, very good side. So going forward for me with them is just about being able to bring in some of those young players that are waiting in the wings to an established side. They brought in Pant, came in. You've got obviously Hardik Pandya. You've got Shubman Gill, Amarpreet Singh, Ishan Kishan. I mean, you've got some talented players. Sure, there's no shortage of talented players in India at the moment. I mean, for me, it's just getting that mix of them. And I think they'll be a force. And even this far out, you have to say that they'll be again amongst the favourites for the 2023 World Cup. Assuming Rohit Sharma will be there, you will still have Virat Kohli, I would imagine. Will still be up there as one of the best one-day batsmen in the world. Bumrah's still a young man. You've still got the two spinners that will be more effective over in India. Jadeja's still not even that old. So for me, it's just about for them blending players, and they've got so much talent. They've got a couple of exciting years ahead of them, I think.
Indeed. Well, if anything, the Indian coach, one, you have these, the coaches of the individual skill set. So you have a fast bowling coach, you have a spin coach, you have a batting coach, and so on, fielding coach. And these people would probably take care more of the individual skill set. And these people would already be groomed at a certain level once they reach the India A level, and they already have the basic skills. So you would have some minor course corrections here and there. But what the coach would do, one is run the team, take care of some managerial issues, but also, at the higher end, probably strategize with the captains, probably identify a potential 11 that they would be playing against, and help the captain and the player strategize against each player. So, for example, if India plays New Zealand, how would you bowl against Marty Guptill? How do you bowl against Ross Taylor? How do you bowl against Ken Williamson, and so on for the bowlers? And if you are the batter, how do you combat Trent Bolt's across, over the wicket line, left arm over the wicket? Then how do you then switch over to Matt Henry? How do you then switch over to all of these people, Ferguson and so on? So that's one thing. The other thing, probably, if anything, a neutral or a more strong voice in the dressing room would help somebody like Kohli, because it's very obvious from what you see. Kohli is a very strongly opinionated man, and somebody who is equally strongly opinionated was probably not tolerated in that dressing room, because I think that's what happened with Anil Kumble. But if you look at the longer term of what is good, it helps when somebody who's also seen a lot or played a lot of international cricket is able to challenge the perceptions that Kohli has, or he's still a growing cricketer. Somebody who's been there, done that, can already always contribute a bit more. So how about somebody like Tom Moody, who's now been suddenly made free from his commitments with Sunrisers Hyderabad? They also floated names like Mike Hussey. These people are they have played in the Indian setup when they played IPL, or they coached in the IPL, so they know how the Indian sporting setup works. So they would be able to blend in easily into the, let's say, the structure, but still contribute. So the amount of changes that some foreign coaches were able to inject. For example, John Wright was very successful over a longer period of time. Greg Chappell was there for a short period of time. His stint was probably not very well liked, but he started this revolution where people had to be fitter, and this hierarchy that senior and junior players had among them was abolished, and so on and so on. So there have been changes when other people from other sporting backgrounds and other cricketing backgrounds have come in and injected some ideas into the Indian cricket. So I'm hoping, as much as I like the Virat Kohli Ravi Shastri combo, maybe it is time for the Indian cricket team to bring in a set of fresh ideas. Even Dave Watmore, somebody who's seen and coached around the subcontinent and knows how it works, might really be able to help. These are just thoughts. We'll see how it goes, because I think in a month or two we'll get to hear the result of this, let's say, choice. Right?
Dave Watmore's an interesting choice, isn't he? Because he's been on the circuit for so many years and been successful with so many international sides. And you think of his stint with the Sri Lankan side, and he brought them up. Looking around the traps, I think Mickey Arthur's another one. I'm not sure whether he will leave Pakistan. I was reading somewhere the other day where it was like he may end up moving on that position. So he'd be an interesting candidate as well. And he's been just about every single international team now, isn't he? It seems like he's always got an international gig. So whether he's going to be in the mix, it's got to be an interesting decision, whatever the way they go.
Indeed. So, some thoughts on that. Some of the other things, Mashrafe Mortaza played for Bangladesh, and we thought his time in the international cricket may have come to an end. But it looks like he had decided to tour Sri Lanka after all with the one-day setup of Bangladesh. Now it has come to light that he's actually injured, so he'll not be able to play. But instead, Tamim Iqbal will lead. What do you think about Mashrafe Mortaza's captaincy and maybe his career going forward?
I think he's been a great servant for Bangladeshi cricket. And he started off such as a young man. He bowled a lot quicker back then, and he's just had so many injury concerns for the last few years. His knees are pretty much shot, aren't they? But he's a calming influence on that side, and he's a kind of player that gives a lot of confidence to the younger players. He's 35 years old now, and just with his injuries and his fitness, you'd think it's probably time for him to move on. In saying that, he's been such a great servant. I guess it's his decision on whether he wants to retire or not. He's still bowling effectively for Bangladesh, not the big wicket taker, but more that kind of steady role with the ball these days, keeping it relatively tight. I think looking ahead to their setup, Tamim Iqbal would be a good choice. He's a fiery fella. He's a very good player. He had a poor World Cup by his standards, and dropped that catch off Rohit Sharma, and Rohit went on and got that big 100. But he's a guy that's now experienced. He's really developed in the Test level. Had a good tour to New Zealand earlier on this year. So I think he's a very good choice as captain for Bangladesh. He's been around for a long time, Tamim Iqbal, but he's still a relatively young man.
Yeah, indeed. He's probably put all his younger years behind him, and now he's a very mature statesman and would be a good choice for captain going forward, I'm sure. Right? So Eoin Morgan has been chosen to represent the Dublin franchise in the Euro T20 League. Have you been following the build-up to this league at all, Adam?
I haven't been following too much of it. I know there's a lot of Kiwis going to be involved in it, and it starts in August. Should be an exciting competition. Hopefully it will really generate some interest in Ireland, Scotland, and in Holland as well. It's a great initiative to get those three countries playing T20 cricket. It's an exciting brand of cricket, obviously, and they've got some really good players in that tournament. And Brendan McCullum, I think from memories, I don't have the teams in front of me, but I know that he'll be playing in there, plus a few of the Kiwi players, Martin Guptill and a few others. So, it's going to be an exciting tournament to watch. We get coverage in New Zealand, which is going to be awesome. I'm really looking forward to sitting down and watching some quality cricket around breakfast time. Be great to see.
Indeed. Well, I mean, it looks like, the Amsterdam has a team, Amsterdam Knights, and Rotterdam has a team, Rotterdam Rhinos. So these two are the Dutch teams in the tournament. So I would be very curious if I can get a few tickets and go watch a couple of these games. If I am able to, I'll let you know. I think it's going to be a very interesting experience for us as well. Going forward, well, I just saw breaking news. This is just out like an hour ago. So Dhoni has made himself unavailable for the West Indies tour. Yeah, we don't know if what he has decided, but it's come to light that he has made himself unavailable. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's probably a good time for Dhoni to move on, to be honest. Like, what is he, 36, 37 now?
He's 38.
You've got a ready-made replacement in Pant who could come to the side. And, you think about that Indian side, and, I've just mentioned some of the young kids that are coming through. You've got those Dishans, you've got Kishan, I should say, you've got Amanpreet Singh, you've got Shubman Gill, you've got Shaw, you've got all these young guys. And I think it'd be a great time for Indian cricket to integrate all these guys into the side. And I think Dhoni's been a tremendous servant for Indian cricket. He's one of the all-time great one-day players. He's the finisher. But there's been signs that, he, in some respects, he kind of holds back India in some respects, with the way he plays. They've relied so much on him to finish matches off, and his game's definitely adapted over the last few years. And when he started off, he was such an attacking force, and we think about the helicopter shots. But I thought in that semi-final against New Zealand that he just didn't pull the trigger quick enough, and he left India with way too much to do in the last 2 or 3 overs. I'm not sure whether he can be really leaving the ball, with 5 overs to go.
Yeah.
Sure, he soaked up a lot of pressure, and Jadeja at the other end played an outstanding innings. But once Jadeja got out, you felt that it needed something special for India to get home. And he's had a long career. He's one of the all-time greats. But I think it's time for them to move on and blood Pant. I mean, Pant could bat in the number 6 or number 7 spot in the Indian one-day side and play as a finisher, play as the keeper batsman, and then you just find 2 other middle-order batsmen. And you've still got Kohli, and you've still got Dhawan when he comes back from injury, and Rohit Sharma.
Look, he has not officially retired from international cricket, and he has cited some off-field commitments which are equally important to him, because of which he will not play. So he has an honorary lieutenant colonel in a parachute regiment of the Territorial Army, Indian Army. So he's decided that he will be honoring those commitments because he'd already made them previously. So it's a weird thing to cite, but doesn't matter. I mean, we'll see how it goes at the end of the West Indies tour if he's still interested in playing, because I think he'll want to play a couple more seasons of IPL and so on. So it's interesting to see how he goes. But I think you hit the point on the head when you said he might be holding them back a little. But, his nous and his wisdom might still be usable in the dressing room. But also on the field, he could probably counsel them by standing outside the boundary line sometimes. But maybe in the field, his involvement is probably holding India back a little. You're absolutely right. All right. Now we've discussed all the news that I really wanted to discuss. Going further, all we have to look at is the trivia section. So the trivia question from the previous episode was, which was the first ever match to have a super over result? So any guesses on the answer, Adam?
So this would have to go way back to T20 days when it first started out. What did New Zealand versus Australia, the very first T20 international?
No, not that far back.
That was a bowl off.
Indeed. So, but you're sort of right in one of the teams, but that's why I'm asking you again. It was played in New Zealand, and New Zealand was one of the teams. Can you guess the opponent? And
New Zealand versus the West Indies.
Exactly. Well done. It was
Chris
New Zealand
Gale
versus West Indies.
Mad.
Exactly. That match.
Didn't have to pull that one out, but yep.
So it was December 26th, the Boxing Day match of 2008 between New Zealand and West Indies, and the first T20I of the series. And West Indies won this match. You're absolutely right. Chris Gale went berserk and they scored 25 runs in the super over, and that was that, right? And of our listeners, Yogesh got it right. And we had one more answer which was partially right, who also guessed the New Zealand Australia match actually, just like how you did. So we are requesting our listeners to continue writing in. This is always very encouraging for us. So the trivia question for this week is, which women's international cricket team is nicknamed Lady Chevrons? So I hope we've discussed this team in today's episode. So maybe Adam, you already know the answer. Do you?
I don't actually.
All right. So it's something for our listeners as well as you to maybe look up when you're free if you're interested. So you could write into us with the answer to this question or your feedback, etc. On the social media platforms at Armchair Cricket Pod, or you could write into us on the Facebook page. Right? You could write into us on the different apps you might listen in for the episode. For example, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Acast. Now we also have the episodes available on Acast. Any of these platforms, you could write it to us at armchair.cricket@gmail.com. So all of these things are still available as avenues for you to let us know either the answer to the question or your thoughts. Apart from that, we have a lot of good test match cricket resuming and coming up, and a lot of good, interesting points coming up to discuss in the upcoming episodes. So I hope you're all staying tuned in. So I would like to say thanks to Adam. So Adam, it has, as always, been a wonderful chat with you. So do you have anything to plug, maybe?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's been having a bit of a rest from cricket, actually, after the World Cup. It's been a whirlwind 6 weeks. So, yeah, not much at all happening. I'm looking forward to the test between England and Ireland this Thursday, and New Zealand play a test series in a few weeks' time against Sri Lanka over in Sri Lanka. So that'll be good to see. And obviously the Vitality T20 series is going on at the moment. Just started, and AB de Villiers smashing that 80 of 40-odd balls the other night, showing how big a loss he was for the South African side in the World Cup. But it's there's no really rest in cricket, is there? It's just constant cricket going on, some exciting cricket going on. You can hear more from our podcast if you follow us at CricketeersNZ, either via Facebook or on Twitter.
Thanks a lot, Adam. As always, it's been a pleasure. So I would like to say goodbye.
Thanks very much, Ajit. Great for the chat, and look forward to talking with you again soon, because there's so much cricket going on.
Indeed, mate. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
You're listening to the Armchair Cricket Podcast.